Howdy, folks. Welcome back to Draft and Drive. My name is Josh. I'm here with my sister Alexia. We are NASCAR enthusiasts, and today we are recapping Circuit of the Americas for the O'Reilly Series and for the Cup Series. Alexia, start us off. What the heck happened in the O'Reilly Series today?
Well, Austin Hill, stage one winner. Brent Cruz took them four wide. I thought that's interesting, and we'll come back to Brent Cruz later. Only 17 years old. First O'Reilly Series start. He's going to miss the first four races of the season, and then once he turns 18, he's going to race full time. But right now, he's permitted to drive on the road courses and I believe the short tracks. So once he turns 18, though, he'll run the rest of the season. But so this was his first big race for the O'Reilly Series for Joe Gibbs Racing. And what does he do? He takes him four wide and takes the lead to start stage two. And then Sam Mayer wins stage two. And then there was a driver change because JJ Yaley wasn't feeling well, and they did the driver change with Brad Perez. Usually he is on one of the pit crew or on one of the teams, just like I said, either doing pit crew stuff or a mechanic. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know what team he works for, but he also does some driving on the side. And then the big drama of the race was that Corey Day got into Connor Zilic. Connor Zilic calls Corey Day a hack. And then to finish it out, shocking I'm sure, but Shane Van Gisbergen got the win.
Yeah, bit of a snoozer race, to be honest, but we had our spicy moment during the race on the radio when Zilch called Corey Day a hack. And then after the race, Connor Zilch said he just wanted an apology, but Corey Day was just staring at him from across pit road, which I thought was funny. Was just looking at him. So I guess starting with that, does he need to quickly get it together before people, lose patience with him, or does he still have a bit more, leniency with being, essentially a rookie?
I think a little bit of both. He's not creating the best reputation for himself, but again, you are a rookie. You're gonna make these mistakes. It's not like it's a veteran that's doing all these things and causing all these issues. It's someone that's a rookie, and there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be bad blocks, bad moves. Does he need to clean it up? Yeah. You don't want a bad reputation, and you don't want a bad reputation driving for Hendrick Motorsports, especially when they look to you to be their future. He's still getting good finishes despite being a wrecking ball. Not to say that that makes up for anything, but he's still getting these finishes, and so we'll see. We're going to Phoenix next weekend. Hopefully they can, once again, I'll say this like I said last week, hopefully he can race clean, keep his car clean, run all the laps, stay out of the way, and get himself a good finish. But yes, the drivers are running out of patience around him.
Yeah, and like you said, he's still getting good finishes. He's showing he can wheel, but right now he's not showing he can wheel ethically without the at the expense of others.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. Good surprise for the race. Mine, somebody you already briefly touched on, Brent Cruz. The inexperience, but still manages sixth place. I thought that was crazy. He led 5 laps in front of SVG and Mayer. I would consider for the Xfinity Series, SVG's not there anymore, and obviously Zilch was in the field, but like Mayer, I'd probably consider the best, full-time O'Reilly driver. I think I said Xfinity like 4 times there. The best O'Reilly driver. And also, another good surprise for me, Carson Quaffle running, I believe in my notes I wrote a DGM shitbox, running phenomenally. All throughout the day, I know he got damage or whatnot. I think actually from one of the instances. But fantastic day for him. Shows he can wield as well. But also that is separately a bad look for Josh Williams, who DQ'd in DGM equipment. Same race, yet Carson Quaffle's out here dominating. Bit of a bad look, but this is supposed to be the good surprise. So who was your good surprise?
I also had Brent Cruz, and you touched on everything well there. 17 years old, first O'Reilly Series race, and you're going out leading laps. My also good surprise, this might be a little shocking, but it actually was Corey Day. Corey Day does not have a lot of road course experience, and he still managed to get, I believe it was a top 5. I think he got 5th. Again, keep yourself clean, stay out of harm's way. But it was impressive, he's driving up there with some of the veterans, you could say, of the O'Reilly series, and he's up there wheeling and dealing. So, I don't know, he was my good surprise along with Brett Cruz. My bad surprise? That I had was Ross Chastain. I feel like I didn't see much of him throughout the race for the O'Reilly series, and he's known for being good on the road courses, but yeah, I didn't see him much during the O'Reilly series race. I thought he'd be more of a factor. Maybe not, again, I assumed SVG and Connor Zilic were going to be, the top two to beat, but I thought Chastain would have, be around at least a top 5 finish for him, and nope, didn't see him.
Yeah. That's a good one. My bad surprise, and this is going to be a bit of a trend today, but was, spoiler alert, my race pick for Circuit Americas, Justin Allgaier, because where the heck was that guy? Yes, he was solidly top 10 all day, but you expect Justin Allgaier to be top 5, maybe top 3. He was just okay. And like, I hope it shows, the respect I have from the expectations I have for him that, he finished 8th place, and I'm saying bad surprise, but I expect a little bit more. And I would say also in that same category of didn't outright offend me, but wasn't as good as I thought they'd be was Taylor Gray. You just expect both of them to be a bit more up, in contention at road courses. I know Zilic and SVG were both there, but I still expect a little bit better things to them. And I guess that leads me into our previous race pick. Mine was Justin Allgaier, who got 8th place.
I had Sam Mayer 14th. You pick first for this week for Phoenix.
Heck yeah. Was not expecting an 8th place to get me the win, but I'll take it. Phoenix next weekend. My race pick is, shouldn't come as much as a surprise, Jesse Love won the last time they were there. Obviously the championship race. I believe he ran good in the spring last year. He is my race pick. RCR on a tear. Who's yours?
I was actually going with your pick last week. I'm going with Justin Allgaier. He's generally pretty good at Phoenix, and I think he needs, he's just been average, I feel like, this year, and I feel like he needs something to bounce back. I feel like Phoenix is a good way to get his momentum going, so I'm going with Allgaier. I think he will get the win next week at Phoenix. You ready to jump in a cup?
I am ready to jump in a cup.
All right. There's not much to say here, but let's go through it for it anyway. Tyler Reddick got the pole. Before the race even started, Kyle Larson had some engine issues before the green flag. Hendrick Motorsports elected to not further look into it and take the risk, and so he didn't have to jump to the rear. Stage 1 winner, Ross Chastain. Zilic spins to start Stage 2. I believe that was from Daniel Suarez. Connor Zilic was not happy with Suarez. Stage 2 winner, Ty Gibbs. There was trouble for Chase Briscoe. He went behind the wall early. Alex Bowman, not feeling well. Actually, kind of a pattern for a lot of these drivers. I don't know if anything came out further into it, but there were a lot of cool suit failures yesterday, which is something I want to touch on later. But there was a driver swap for Alex Bowman. I originally saw it from Jeff Gluck on X about 10 or 15 minutes before the swap even happened, and there was no mention on the broadcast, which I thought was interesting, until the driver swap pretty much finished up, which Myatt Snyder came in to relieve Alex Bowman. I have an interesting tidbit, but I'll actually just say it now. I learned from Jeff Gluck that Myatt Snyder was not eligible to race the Cup Series and specifically the road courses, but the Cup Series, he didn't have a license for that, and you have to get permission. So Hendrick Motorsports was in a scramble and asked, hey, can we get Myatt Snyder, permission to be able to jump into this Cup Series car? He had a former road course victory, so they allowed it, but at first, he wasn't even allowed to drive the car. They had to get permission first. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, and like I said, we can touch on that later, how we think Myatt Snyder did in his first Cup appearance, but he was laps down, but still. Alright, let's keep it pushing. There was a caution for Ross Chastain, the only caution of the race that wasn't a stage caution. That pretty much killed Ross Chastain's day. Kyle Busch was mad at his teammate, Jesse Love, and he knocked Jesse Love into Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher spun, which also pretty much killed Chris Buescher's day. He rallied back, I think, a couple positions, but finished in the 20s. And then Tyler Reddick made history with being the first driver to win the first 3 races in a row to start the season.
Heck yeah. Is anybody awake after that? The race was pretty boring. However, we got a couple interesting tidbits to touch on. My number one that I have here, I think I mentioned this to you yesterday, is I do not think Chumba Casino has lost a race anytime they've sponsored a car in the Cup Series, going back to Bubba Wallace at the Brickyard last year. Tyler Reddick has ran it twice. Obviously, he has not lost yet this year. I do not think they have lost a race yet. Fantastic return on investment for Chumba Casino. Crazy. I don't know what the win rate records are, but I can't imagine they have to be at least top 5. I don't know if anybody's ever had something like that happen. So I thought that was crazy. Another thing I want to touch on was on the last lap. It's kind of been going around, but Mike Joy screaming about Carson Hocevar being nose into the wall. Listen, I will take him screaming about potentially nothing as opposed to last year. We were falling asleep because the booth sounded like they were, taking melatonin before the race. It was bad. So I'll take he's at least getting into it. I can appreciate that. Let's see.
And there wasn't much for him to work off the rest of the race. It probably built up because he's ready for something to cause a caution, and there was just the one with Ross Chastain. So that was big news that was happening.
Yeah. Let's see. My good surprise for the race was somebody who we can kind of circle back on with the cool suit failure was AJ Allmendinger. Cool suit went out. Fox briefly shows a image of him lying lying on the pavement before taking away that camera view and then not talking about it and going to commercial. And I was like, well, hope the guy's not dead. I said that in real time. Yeah. But then they showed him, I think, afterwards getting carted off. He got released. Same with Alex Bowman, so both of them are okay. But AJ Allmendinger, no cool suit with Colleague Racing, who now is very minimal Chevy support because they run the Dodges in the Truck Series. It's a 9th place finish. That's crazy to me. Obviously, we know AJ is very good at the road courses, but unbelievable. Just against the odds, I was very impressed by that. And also, Brad Keselowski, guys hobbling along on one leg, is the world's probably worst road course racer in the Cup Series. For anybody who's, been around for a while. No offense to him. 20th place finish. Crazy. You compare that to Tyler Reddick, in terms of monumental, happenings. And then also, obviously, the obvious was Connor Zilic climbed up 14th, finishes 14th after getting spun twice, climbs his way through the field. Very impressive. But I've been rambling. I had 3 this week, but who was your good surprise of the race?
So I also had Connor Zilic. I saw on X, I don't know if this was true, but he made his way up. Well, he started in the back, made his way up, got spun, made his way back up again, got spun, and still had it's not a great finish, but he kept working his way up. He obviously had a fast car. And then I saw on X that he had passed 56 cars. Now, I don't know if this person was 100% right or not, but that sounds about right because of how many cars he passed, because he kept just going to the back, make his way up, going to the back, make his way up. My other one was Ty Gibbs. A lot of bad press this week, and the team rallied, and they ended up getting him, I think it was a 4th place finish. He ended up winning a stage, got stage points in the first one. Good for Ty Gibbs. Let's get that momentum going. Like I said, some bad press this week. We'll touch on that later, obviously, but I think he needed that, and I think that gives some good momentum going to Phoenix next week and the future races. Hopefully this is the turnaround. I think, like I said, I think he's going to get his first win this year. We'll see, but this is a good start. Yeah. You ready for the bad surprise?
Lay it on me.
So I had 2. So I had Daniel Suarez. He made his way. He made his way up there, and he was looking real good. And then after a pit stop, he just kind of vanished. So that was one, and then my other one was Chase Elliott, who I know he ended up getting a top 10 finish, but where the hell was he the first half of the day? He's known for being one of the best road course racers, or at least he used to be. He doesn't really hold that title as much anymore. You know, William Byron and Kyle Larson kind of have taken that role for Hendrick Motorsports for being the top dog for road course racers, but where the hell was he? He was literally missing for the first half of the day. Like I said, he ended up getting a top 10 finish, but I just thought he would be a bit more of a factor in racing top 10 throughout the day, but like I said, the finish is what matters. I mean, obviously he missed out on some stage points, but at least he got that finish. And who's your bad surprise?
Well, like I said, I had Zilich. We know he's good at the road courses. Was not much of a factor all day. My other one, continuing
Suarez?
continuing my trend of being upset that my race picks did not do very well. Kyle Busch. He was my 36 for 36, not my race pick, but this is one of his best tracks. Was good here the past 2 years. Was not a factor all day. Ran in the 20s literally the entire day. Finished 12th, which is a miracle for where they were running all day. But I spent most of the race looking at Kyle Busch being like, I'm just angry. What are you doing? What's going on here? The guy was contending for the win the past 2 years, and you expect him to be up there. Poop. And let's see. My race pick was William Byron. He sucked. He got 13th.
I had SVG. He got second.
GG.
So I guess I picked first this week.
Yep.
I didn't write it down, but thank God I memorized it. So I'm gonna go Christopher Bell to win at Phoenix next week. I think he's pretty decent at that track. Got a top 5 finish this week. Again, it's kind of the same thing. Some good momentum. I think Tyler Reddick finally loses the streak of winning 3 races in a row. Not going to win his 4th. I do want to touch up on something, though, that I missed out on saying before. Did you know? So Tyler Reddick now, I believe this is his 11th career victory. His 11th career victory, before his first 10 victories, he won at 10 different tracks. This is his first track that he has now won at twice. That shows you the diversity of, his talent, and he can go anywhere and win.
Yeah. I think, obviously now it's not as easy to, underrate him, but I would say one of the underrated drivers of the sport, just obviously in terms of, how versatile he is, but also just consistent. Last year was a down year, but yeah, that's crazy. All different tracks.
All right, so I went with Bell. Who are you picking for your race win?
My race pick is going to be Denny Hamlin. Was dominating Phoenix, obviously, last year. The finale. Was good there in the spring. I feel like he's always good here. I expect him to be up front contending. Honestly, I probably think it might be Bell versus Hamlin. Maybe throw Larson in there, but I expect them to do well. And my 36 for 36... Josh Berry. I've looked at the stats. You look furious.
Yes, I also picked Josh Berry.
Got him. I've looked at the stats. I'm assuming you have as well. He's pretty dang good here.
Yep. I don't want to waste, a top driver already. I still think it's just a little early on, so I'm kind of saving him. But yeah, I went with Josh Berry. I feel like he's just consistent there. I think he should get, I'm hoping he gets a top 10 finish at least. But yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll see together.
Has there been a week yet that we haven't picked the same person for something?
I don't think, what did we pick last week? You picked Bush and I picked Gibbs for our 36.
Yeah. There's always some conflict going on though.
Yep. But at least it shows that we're not, we find out on the podcast.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for some off-track news?
Mm-hmm.
You want to start?
I'll start. And it's going to be a doozy, folks. We got an update to the lawsuit. Buckle in. It wasn't as hefty as, the initial one, but it is still pretty good because Chris Gabehart kind of released a bit of his side. He released a declaration, and Joe Gibbs Racing adds Spire as now one of the defendants on the lawsuit where they're suing Chris Gabehart. Gabehart says that he was promised full control over all competitive operations, but was bothered by Joe Gibbs, executives, and Gibbs family members having a say even in routine decisions. Gabehart thought, the 54 team was held to a different standard than the rest of the other three teams. Obviously, Ty Gibbs, the grandson, drives for the team, but I haven't seen anybody talk about this. Jackson Gibbs is pit crew. He's the front tire changer. So we've got at least two members of the family on that 54 team, potentially muddying the waters for, it seems any sort of holding people to a standard. Joe Gibbs kept asking Chris Gabehart to crew chief the 54. Gabehart did not want to do that. Finally, he gave in, just I believe to, I'm going to not quote him here, but to shut him up for a little bit. He did that for 9 races. During that time, he felt that his decisions were getting undermined anytime it was relevant to the 54 team without his permission, and that Ty Gibbs specifically was not held to the same meeting expectations as the rest of the JGR drivers, meaning he didn't have to attend, I think, a meeting or two that everyone else had to. He and Gabehart and Joe Gibbs met on November 6th and agreed to separate, something that both sides have now said happened, that they met together and they both agreed that separation was the best case scenario. Gabehart admits that he took pictures, but says it was meant for JGR duties, and he had no plans of using it for, any other employment, potentially. Gabehart says the Spire folder on his computer was for evaluating employment with Spire, not for any sort of setup stuff. Gabehart says that he wishes it didn't come to this, but he doesn't think Ty or the Gibbs family are bad people, just was not a good working environment for him. And then March 1st, we got a little bit of new info. Joe Gibbs Racing says that Gabehart's new role at Spire is the same as when they were with him, which violates, their, release thing. Specifically citing a statement made to Bob Pockris by Jeff Dickerson when he says that Gabehart has autonomy over all of their race teams, not just NASCAR, but there are other ones they have as well. Joe Gibbs Racing claims Gabehart searched the meaning of indemnity on December 4th, 2 days after he met with Dickerson, and he had to search it up. And I'm not judging it, because after I read this, I searched it up. And it means that one party will cover another party financially from damages, penalties, and legal fees, which, relevant to the lawsuit, basically means that Joe Gibbs Racing thinks Spire offered him this, kind of immunity for him to leave for Spire, and then Spire says that whatever pushback you get from Joe Gibbs Racing, financially, whatever, will cover you for it. Don't worry about it. You're not going to spend a dime on it. This is according to Joe Gibbs. So that was kind of the big, chunks this week of the lawsuit, but it's getting spicy. It's getting interesting. Once again, I hope some more of the, minute details of, driver salaries, structures, and things like that get released, because I'm very interested to see that. But now before it was all very Joe Gibbs Racing sided. Everything was coming from Joe Gibbs at Gabehart. Now Gabehart with a bit of a defense to himself. We'll see how it goes, but definitely, it's less one-sided than before, obviously, because now we have Gabehart's side of the story. Do you have a reaction to that? I mean, I know it's just lawsuit stuff, but it's like, now we have Gabehart's side of the story. It's not as black and white as it may have seemed to start.
Yeah, well, I guess I can pick up where you left off. So they went to court on Friday because JGR wants to give a restraining order to Chris Gabehart to not be able to, temporary restraining order to not be able to work at Spire. On Friday, they came to the conclusion that there was no decision met. The judge basically said, hey, you guys try to work it out over the weekend. If you can't work it out, we'll come back on Monday and I'll make a decision, but I think this is something that can be worked out outside of court. It turns out that they did not work it out over the weekend, so then they met again today, and the judge ruled that Chris Gabehart can continue working for Spire Motorsports, but cannot perform any duties at Spire that he was doing as JGR's competition director. So, as long as he is not working as the same role that he was doing in Joe Gibbs Racing, which Chris Gabehart says he is not. He can still perform those duties working at Spire. But yeah, that was breaking news as of today. So I feel like that's a good decision that works out for all parties. We'll see if there's anything more that comes with it, but this allows Chris Gabehart to still continue his role with Spire, and, this is a fresh start. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how and if this affects JGR any, because obviously he was such a crucial role to Joe Gibbs Racing. But like I said, this is a fresh start for both of them. We'll see what happens. Obviously, Denny Hamlin got a top 10 or I don't know if he got 10th or 11th, but on the road course yesterday, that's unheard of for Denny Hamlin. Ty Gibbs got a 4th place finish. Christopher Bell got a 3rd place finish. I mean, Chase Briscoe had issues that was out of his hands, but he was leading some laps early in the race, so I think they'll be okay.
Yep. And moving on from lawsuit stuff, unless you've got anything else.
Well, I do have another lawsuit.
Okay. Let's have it.
Well, this is an arc of. I was just going to be brief on this, but Nitro Motorsports filed a lawsuit against Leland Honeyman over a car number dispute. It sounds like originally he was going to be full-time, and then now he's going to be switched to part-time. I did take some notes off of frontstretch.com. I can read them real quick if you want. So Nitro's lawsuit seeks a judgment declaring Honeyman's contract was properly assigned and accepted. The contract does not give Honeyman the right to control which car number he drives. Nitro was not obligated to keep Honeyman in the number 20 regardless of his full or part-time status. Neither Venturini nor Nitro committed a breach of contract by giving Honeyman a new car number, and then Honeyman is not excused from fulfilling contract obligations. So again, this is what Nitro, the lawsuit that they're seeking judgment over. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I just wanted to touch on it briefly because I think it's interesting that we went from like very few lawsuits in NASCAR, and then we got the one with Legacy, and then we got the one with 2311, and now we have the one with Chris Gabehart and Spire, and now we have this one with Nitro Motorsports, and you're like, holy crap. I'm kind of losing track of all of them. Sports just, everyone's suing everyone.
Yeah.
So that was it. Again, that was from frontstretch.com. I just took their stuff off of there because I couldn't find much information about the lawsuit besides that, but it's interesting. Another lawsuit to file. NASCAR back.
Yeah. I gotta give credit to Matt Weaver because he's been mostly my source for these things, for posting and whatnot. So shout out to Matt. But moving on to something a little later, Phoenix next week. Obviously, we've already kind of touched on the chances of a Reddick Fort Pete. I don't think it's likely. You already mentioned you don't think it's very likely. But it is possible. I feel like it became a lot more real. I would say their chances of a three-peat were lower. I should say, going out and doing what they did at COTA was very impressive. And it would not surprise me as much if they did it at Phoenix because, coming from Daytona, Atlanta, two drafting tracks, a little bit of a different style racing where, COTA, you just got to kind of outdrive him. And that's exactly what he did, including to SVG, the best road racer in NASCAR. So him going out and dominating and winning at Phoenix would not terribly surprise me. This race, Phoenix, does not matter as much. In years past, it was very, very important race because you learned what you're going to have for the finale. The, one race championship race this year. It's kind of just another race. Obviously, Phoenix is in the chase, so it's still important, but a little less so this year. I believe that is all my off topics. What do you got for me?
So, NASCAR Full Speed, switching from Netflix over to Prime Video. I'm surprised they honestly waited this long with their partnership with Prime last year. It doesn't sound like they're having a season. Well, I guess they followed the playoffs, but a playoff documentary, or docu-series, I should say, going through the 2025 season. Instead, they're going to be doing a docu-series that followed the Daytona 500. They're going to be featuring 4 drivers: Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Noah Gragson, and Connor Zilisch. It's going to dive into a little bit deeper into their families and their personal lives than obviously the race at the Daytona 500. But that comes out March 5th, so that'll be out this week. Again, Prime Video, not Netflix. And I also believe that they're moving over season 1 and 2 from Netflix for Full Speed to Prime Video. And then the last thing I have is a question I wanted to ask you. So there's an IndyCar slash NASCAR crossover this weekend. There was also one last weekend at St. Petersburg. But Saturday IndyCar race at 3, followed by the O'Reilly race at 7:30. Sunday Cup race at 3:30. Again, this is all in Phoenix. But Pat O'Ward said that he is tired of IndyCar being like the support race. Said when the two series share a track, IndyCar should not be positioned as a secondary to NASCAR. Thoughts?
The easy answer, the most obvious answer is whoever has, the best viewership should be the top series. And I mean that in terms of, I know they were with the trucks last week, or yeah, trucks last week. So, whoever, I don't know who has better viewership. I would assume the NASCAR trucks. I could be wrong there. But if that's the case, then the trucks, whoever's got the best should be the top. And then obviously I know with, Cup and IndyCar, it's going to be Cup every single time. They're the big draw.
Every time probably except the Indianapolis 500.
This is true. If we're doing, Indy and, Indy 500, Brickyard 400, obviously the Cup is going to be the Orca series, comparison. But interesting. I did see that, and I was like, it's interesting, especially comparison to Cup. I understand they want their sport to be taken seriously. Obviously, NASCAR wants their sport to be taken seriously as well. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
I can't really see an issue with it. I can't see why he's complaining. Because I think that this brings, I sit on every Sunday and I watch the Cup Series race. Like, let's say I was to travel to Phoenix this weekend and I was to go there. I pay money for the Saturday race, which is the O'Reilly Series race. Now, a lot of times NASCAR does this thing that when you pay for the Saturday race, you get all the events that day. I imagine that's the same. I don't know 100%, but I imagine that's the same. I watch the Cup Series race every weekend and I watch the O'Reilly Series race every weekend. So if I go to the track, I'm going to go and watch both races. So this gives me then, as a fan, I can watch IndyCar. Maybe not. It's not going to be my first time, but I'm going to be able to watch IndyCar from the stands, get the atmosphere of watching IndyCar, and what the goal is to try to get me to be a new fan. And then the roles are reversed. Again, the big race is the Cup Series, but you hope that the IndyCar fans are going to make a weekend out of it. People are going to camp the whole weekend and go for the whole weekend watching the IndyCar race, the O'Reilly Series race, and the Cup race. I don't see an issue, and I see actually only benefits of having collaboration weekends, crossover weekends, whatever you want to say. I think this brings new eyes to each series, and NASCAR's, besides the Indianapolis 500, killing IndyCar in viewership. Wouldn't you want more people to watch both? That's my opinion.
Anyways, I think there's no reason to, pit the two series against each other. I think we can have two great things on one weekend and have it be the birds should be singing, the stars should align. It's a good deal, I think, for both. I agree with you. Now, you got anything else for me?
Nope, thanks for asking.
I'm glad I asked. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to recap the Phoenix races for O'Reilly in the Cup Series. Bye-bye. Subscribe. See you.